Good day and welcome to AGK's Vinyl Life. I'm your host, Anthony K, and today is Wednesday, November 4th, 2020. And on this week's episode, I'm going to be showing you my favorite artists from A to M. This video was inspired by a few other videos I'd seen in the vinyl community. Recently, a few VC members have been showing their entire record collections from A to Z and their entire CD collections from A to Z. And I believe Glenn Calloway did a take on that, and rather than showing his entire collection, he picked his favorite artists from A to Z. And I know this topic has been done before, I think at some point before, where people pick their favorite artists from A to Z. I'm going to be doing the same. I'm going to split it into two parts. I'm going to film, the first part today and show you that so I'm going to be going from A to M, and then next week I'll be doing from N to Z. That's right. So these are my favorite artists, and I'll be showing you a couple of samples from each of them, a couple albums from each of them. I tried to pick albums that maybe aren't, some are obviously well known, whereas others are ones that are not shown too much in the vinyl community. So trying to always be original on my channel, try to show a few albums. There's a few albums mixed in here that I've never seen people show or shown very little. And a lot of you might be surprised at one of my favorite artists from A to Z are. A lot of you are probably expecting the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and this and that. Well, you'll be surprised. I was always different than my friends. Sure, I loved, all the artists that my friends listened to, but I always liked to experiment outside of the box and try artists that were lesser known, at least lesser known here where I grew up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Lesser known, and I grew to appreciate a lot of artists that didn't get a lot of love over here in North America, and they have, over the years, grown to become my favorite artists. In the selection, I've gone with artists. In my selection process, I've pretty much chosen artists that I have a lot of material from. I mean, there are a lot of artists that I love, the up-and-coming artists that only have released one or two albums that I could consider my favorites. Tomorrow, I could probably pick a whole whack of different favorite artists. But as of today, I tried to do this a little logically, look through my collection. Who do I have a lot of music to? Who do I listen to? Who's a go-to that I always come back to? Who gets more love than other artists? So I kind of just based it on that. But these are my favorite artists from A to Z. And in this volume, I'm going from A to M. First up, one of my favorite artists for all time from Ireland, I believe it was Ireland, The Alarm. And this is their most famous album, the most well-known, the one that charted the most for them, though they are continuing to make brand new albums to this day. This is their Eye of the Hurricane album, very big, came out in mid-80s, I believe, 87. 87, probably one of my favorite, all-time favorite albums of the 80s. And it's featured such singles on it as Rescue Me and Rain in the Summertime. The Alarm, Eye of the Hurricane for the A's. And here's another one from them. This is called Standards, and this is pretty much a best of. And this covers everything they released throughout the 80s. It's like a best of, greatest hits, whatever you want to call it. It's called Alarm Standards. Highly recommend. If you've never heard The Alarm before, then I'd say, you can certainly go with Eye of the Hurricane, but if you want a really comprehensive of their 80s music, then get Standards. They do continue to make brand new music to this day, but I would say Standards is a great jumping off point if you want to try some Alarm. Also from the A's, I'm going to pick one other. I was trying to stick to only one artist from each letter, just to to save time. Try to pick my favorite artist from each letter, but some letters of the alphabet, there's just so many artists in that letter that I can't just narrow it down to one. So I'm going to give an honorable mention to Aerosmith. That's right, honorable mention to Aerosmith for the A's, and this is my favorite album from them, Toys in the Attic, of course, which contained Toys in the Attic, Sweet Emotion, and the other big song on here was, of course, Walk This Way. Honorable mention to Aerosmith and their Toys of the Attic album. on to the Bees, and there were a lot in the Bees, a lot of people in the Bees, so it was really tough to narrow it down to one artist in the Bees. So I actually narrowed it down to three, and the first one being for sure my favorite artist from the Bees, but I had to give a couple honorable mentions as well. My favorite artist for sure in the Bees is Mr. John Barry, fantastic film music composer who composed music to so many films, and of course to a lot of the James Bond films, of course, which everybody knows I'm a huge fan of. And he pretty much did all the music to all of the Sean Connery films. Rest in peace, Sean Connery. For those who saw my live stream this past weekend, I did do a tribute to Sean Connery there. He was my all-time favorite actor, my idol, my hero, influenced my life more than any other person. He'll be greatly missed, Sean Connery. But yes, John Barry had scored the music to all the Sean Connery films, other than Dr. No. But he did all the Sean Connery films and a few of the Moore films and even one of the Timothy Dalton films. And my favorite, all of his scores from those films would have been, of course, Diamonds Are Forever. I love this score beginning to end, the title track being sung by Miss Shirley Bassey. But Diamonds Are Forever, one of the first albums I ever owned in my life. And one of the reasons I got into music was the music of Mr. John Barry was definitely inspired me getting into music and buying vinyl, as I've talked about many times before. So Diamonds Are Forever. This is a fantastic spin beginning to end. Another great one from his series. This was the last one he did for the Bond film series. This is the Living Daylights. And another fantastic John Barry film score. The Living Daylights, another one of my favorites from Mr. John Barry. Also in the Bees, a band that weren't very well known here in Canada. They're from the UK, and they are fronted by a man by the name of Mr. Bill Nelson, who after this band broke up, went on to, and still to this day, continues to make all sorts of music. He got really into experimenting with all sorts of styles of music and doing solo projects and experimental projects. But his original band was entitled Bebop Deluxe. They made, I believe it was 5 studio albums before they broke up and a live album. This was their debut album, Axe Victim. This is an absolutely fantastic spin, and this is a U.S. import on the Harvest label. Hard to find, but Axe Victim with a very cool cover. Bebop Deluxe had some really cool covers. Axe Victim. And my favorite by Bebop Deluxe would have to have been, hands down, Sunburst Finish. Another epic album cover, also on the Harvest label. This is also a U.S. Harvest pressing. They were from the UK. And this had fantastic singles on it. Fair Exchange, Ships in the Night, and Sleep That Burns. Absolutely fantastic spin. I highly recommend it. Bebop Deluxe, Sunburst Finish. And the third artist from the Bees, who I'm a big fan of, who was playing with B.B. King at the age of 14. Believe it or not, played with B.B. King, did a live, stepped up on stage with B.B. King at the age of 14. He's an absolutely fantastic blues and rock guitarist. He just released a new album called The Royalty last week, and I have a lot of his music. And his name is Mr. Joe Bonamassa. And here's just a couple of things from my Joe Bonamassa collection. I really like this particular live album from a few years ago. I believe this was 2014. This live album, Tour de Force live in London. An absolutely smoking guitar, rockin', blues and rockin' album. This is a 3 LP set, and he does on here, besides music from his own works, he does an incredible version of Zeppelin's Tea for One and an absolutely smoking version of Just Got Paid. Tour de Force live in London, Joe Bonamassa, one of my favorites of his in live. Both of the ones I'm showing you are live albums, just because we don't see people showing him too much. And of course this, which is absolutely brilliant. This is Live at the Greek Theater, which was all blues, classic blues. This is a 4-record set. A 4-record set. Filmed at the Greek Theater, and there was an accompanying video for this, but this is an absolutely smoking hot couple hours of music. Joe Bonamassa live at the Greek Theater. And those are my B's. From C, the C, it was easy. Though I could have picked quite a few artists from the C's. Trust me, quite a few artists from the C's. I narrowed it down to at least 2, though there were many more. My absolute, hands-down favorite artist from the C's, of course, is, and everybody knows that, is Alice Cooper, who, of course, is still making music right up to this day. But yeah, Alice Cooper, my #1 artist, my favorite artist from the C's, and one of my favorite artists, period, of all time, in probably my top 5 artists of all time, Alice Cooper. And this is, of course, the iconic Billion Dollar Babies album that we've seen many times before. This is the Rocktober version from a few years ago on the green and gold splatter vinyl with all the original, complete recreation of the original album cover. We all know Billion Dollar Babies, famous album, but a couple albums that you don't see shown too often. This is Hey Stupid, and this is from the 90s. This was from 1991. Hey Stupid featured such great hits on it as, Hey Stupid, Love's a Loaded Gun, and Feed My Frankenstein, and Hurricane Years. Great album. Alice Cooper, Hey Stupid. Slash plays on this album. He had a number of guest artists on this album. Hey Stupid, 1991. One You Don't See People Show. And another one you don't see people show from 2000 and I think it's 2003. The Eyes of Alice Cooper. A little harder to find album, a little less known album, but it had some great songs on it, like Between High School and Old School, What Do You Want From Me, Novocaine. Some great songs on here. A little less known. The Eyes of Alice Cooper. And this cover actually came in a number of different versions, and the different versions, the eye colors were different. The eyes were a different color on the different album covers. But I think there were 3 or 4 different versions of this album. All identical, it was just the eye color was different. Mine has the red eyes. So the Eyes of Alice Cooper. I'd like to give you a clear look at that. The Eyes of Alice Cooper from 2003. So Alice, my #1 absolute, hands down favorite artist from the C's. And I'm giving an honorable mention, or second place, or whatever, honorable mention to another one of my all-time favorite bands, of course, The Clash. And this is their masterpiece, London Calling, one of my all-time favorite albums, hands down. The Clash, London Calling, with, of course, the classic London Calling, Spanish Bombs, Clamp Down, Guns of Brixton, Train in Vain, Death or Glory. This is just 2 records of absolutely classic punk, new wave punk from this was, I believe, released in 1979, if I'm not mistaken. 1979. One of my all-time favorite albums of all time. Clash, London Calling, which was quickly followed up by, in 1980, a year later, and that was a double LP. It was followed up by a triple LP, Sandinista, another absolutely incredible album. 3 records. This thing is just, you need both Sandinista and London Calling in your collection. This had the great Magnificent Seven, Police on My Back, The Call Up, an incredible album, The Clash, Sandinista. Moving on to the D's. And the D's, there was a few I could have chosen, but I'm going to go with an obvious choice that probably everybody would a lot of people would probably pick, and that's, of course, Deep Purple. And this is Deep Purple and rock. I don't need to show it. People show this album all the time. This is the album that started me off on my road with Deep Purple, the first album I ever owned by Deep Purple. Deep Purple and rock was, of course, the classic Speed King and Child in Time, among others on here. Deep Purple in rock. So Deep Purple, probably my favorite band from the D's, for sure. And following right behind, though they only made a handful of albums, I think 6 studio albums, if I'm not mistaken, and a live album, is, of course, Dire Straits. And I had a toss-up for my favorite albums from Dire Straits. This is Communique, their second album. I absolutely love this album, with Once Upon a Time in the West, Lady Rider. And this was followed by, and that's an original master recording, and it was followed by Making Movies. Right after that was Making Movies, another fantastic album with, of course, Tunnel of Love, Romeo Juliet, Espresso Love, and Solid Rock, a big single. So tough for me to choose between those 2, but I put, Making Movies and Communique as my favorites from Dire Straits. These are both original master recordings. And that's the D's. On to the E's. And, of course, my favorite band from the E's Obviously, as you can see, as I'm wearing a shirt and a hat from their last tour. Originally known as the Electric Light Orchestra, then they kind of got shortened down to ELO, and now it's called Jeff Lynne's ELO. And I'm going to show one that doesn't get much love, that nobody shows, and this is their 2000 and I think this was from around 2001 or early 2000s, and this was Zoom. This is on a colored vinyl. This is a repress from a few years ago on a kind of a milky vinyl. But Zoom, an underappreciated, underrated album. I love Zoom. Great album. Featuring such things as All Right, Moment in Paradise, State of Mind, Just for Love, Stranger in a Quiet Street. I love this album. It's a great album. Underrated. Give it a try, people. Give it a listen. Zoom. Electric Light Orchestra. And also from the E's, I'm giving an honorable mention in the E's to another one of my favorite bands who came up in the 90s, not bands, but an artist, known as Enigma, has released a pile of albums, I think 9 studio albums to date, or 8 studio albums. Known as Enigma. And this one I picked from the library is the Love, Sensuality. What's it? Greatest. It's a greatest hits package. Love, Sensuality, and Devotion. This is the greatest hits package that came out. So this is, if you're looking for a jumping off point for Enigma, I would recommend this album. Though I do have all of the albums that Enigma have made, but this is a good jumping off point for somebody. Enigma greatest hits. Next up, we're into the F's now, and the F's were a hard one for me to pick from, and I could have picked Fleetwood Mac, but I don't play Fleetwood Mac a lot. But the artist that I always really liked in the F's was Flocka Seagulls. That's right, Flocka Seagulls from the '80s, and this was their debut album, famous for Iran, Space Age Love Song, Telecommunication. A great spin, but I really liked their second album more, which was Listen, and it had Transfer Affection on it, Wishing I Had a Photograph of You, Nightmares, It's Not Me Talking, which was produced by Bill Nelson from Bebop Deluxe. Listen, Flocka Seagulls. And also from the F's, I'm going to give an honorable mention to Toronto prog rock band FM, and this is a perfect prog album as far as I'm concerned. This is called FM, and their debut album, Black Noise, Phasers on Stun, 1 O'Clock Tomorrow, Dialing for Dharma, Slaughter in Robot Village, and the epic Black Noise. A fantastic prog album. They didn't make too many albums, but absolutely fantastic. Honorable mention to FM, Black Noise. Then we're getting to G, and of course the G's, everybody who watches my channel and has watched my streams know who my favorite band is from the G's, and that's of course Golden Earring. I just did a big show on Golden Earring with Naz Nomad a couple of weeks ago, a big live stream where we went through their entire library, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. But Golden Earring, my favorite band of all time, 26 studio albums, 9 live albums, and they're still going to this day. And of course, my favorite album from them has got to be Moontan, and of course, there's the European way. Like I said, I've showed these not too long ago, so I'm going to be real quick about it. Golden Earring, Moontan. That's the original European version, which was, of course, here in Canada, we got this version. And I'll say that, as far as I'm concerned, the Canadian version, I like both versions, obviously, because if you watch my other videos, you'll know that there's slight differences in the track listings between the two albums. A couple of different songs on each album. The European Moontan is great, but I prefer the Canadian Moontan just because it had one song on here that wasn't on the European version that I absolutely love. And I put this down as a perfect album in my books. This is a perfect prog rock album, hands down, no question. One that should be in everybody's collection. Golden Earring, Moontan from 1973. And also I'm going to give an honorable mention, because there were lots of bands also in the G's. So I'm going to give an honorable mention to another band, another one of my favorites from the G's, and that's Genesis. Another fantastic prog rock band, and this is from the Gabriel years. This is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. My hands down favorite Genesis album. So nod to Genesis, and Lamb Lies Down is Broadway. Another one of my all-time favorite bands, artists from the G's. Then we get into the H's. The H's, there's one obvious artist from the H's that I think most people would pick, and I'm certainly no different, and that is Mr. Jimi Hendrix. And this is an album you don't see too many people showing. This is live. This is the full live at Monterey by Jimi Hendrix and the Experience. The full version with extra tracks, released just a short time ago, actually. Jimi Hendrix Experience live at Monterey, one of a really great live album. But of course, my favorite from Jimi Hendrix, hands down, no questions asked, is Jimi Hendrix Experience Smash Hits. That's right, Smash Hits. You know, he's got a lot of great albums, but you know, a real winner, always a good go-to, is Smash Hits because it's got all the greats. Purple Haze, Fire, Wind Cries Mary, Can You See Me, Hey Joe, Stone Free, Manic Depression, Foxy Lady, Crosstown Traffic, All Along the Watchtower, which is my favorite song of all time, Red House, and Remember. Jimi Hendrix Experience, Smash Hits. And that's the H's. And an honorable mention to the Hollywood Vampires. That's right, the Hollywood Vampires, fronted by Alice Cooper with guitarists Joe Perry from Aerosmith, and of course Johnny Depp. That's right, the actor Johnny Depp, who also plays in the band. And this is their first album. I've shown their second album from last year before. This is the original first album from 2015, which had a couple of new songs, but most of the stuff on here were covers, and there were a lot of guest artists on here. Paul McCartney guest starred on this. Brian Johnson from AC/DC, among others. And this had some fantastic songs on it, some fantastic covers, like My Generation, an incredible version of A Whole Lot of Love. I Got a Line on You, 5-1, and Break On Through from The Doors. Come and Get It from Badfinger, Jeepster from of course, T-Rex, Cold Turkey from John Lennon, Manic Depression from Jimi Hendrix, Itchy-Coo Park, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. This is an absolutely rock and spin. I love this album. Hollywood Vampires debut album, fronted by Alice Cooper. Honorable mention for the H's. Now the Eyes. And the Eyes is kind of an obvious one. I don't have a lot in the Eyes, so it was real easy. I'm a big fan of these guys. The great metal act, Iron Maiden, for the Eyes. And I could have shown a lot of different Iron Maiden albums. And people do show a lot of the early albums a lot. So I decided to pick their two best of albums just to be different. So the first one is called Somewhere Back in Time, the best of 1980 to 89. So it's got all the great Iron Maiden 80s songs on here, such as Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, The Trooper, Children of the Damned, Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, Phantom of the Opera, Wraithchild, Power Slave, Iron Maiden, among others. And these were actually done on picture discs. I'm not going to show you them all, just give you a quick sample. These were actually done on picture discs, and they sound really good. They really do sound good. I have no qualms playing these, so don't let the picture disc scare you off. Really great collection. If you haven't got Maiden and you just want to have some Maiden in your collection, certainly you can buy, Number of the Beast or some of their earlier albums. But this is a quick way to flesh out your collection with the best of Maiden. So there was this one, Somewhere Back in Time, best of 1980 to 89, and then that was followed by From Fear to Eternity, the best of 1990 to 2010. And so this took you right up to 2010. The only album that isn't featured that's come out since this album is Book of Souls. So this gives you, and that was a double album, this is a triple album. It gives you all the best of Iron Maiden through the rest of the years. Fabulous spin. And this was also a limited edition picture disc version. But you got, classics on here, The Wicker Man, Holy Smoke, The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg, Blood Brothers, Sign of the Cross, Fear of the Dark, Brave New World, Tail Gunner, The Klansman, Bring Your Daughters to the Slaughter, When the Wild Wind Blows, a fantastic spin. Iron Maiden, my favorite band, obviously, of the Eyes. And now on to the Jays. And the Jays was a pretty easy choice for my favorite band from the Jays. And that is Jethro Tull. And this is my favorite album from Jethro Tull. This is, I won't get it out, bother trying to get it out. This is Heavy Horses, my favorite album of Jethro Tull. This is a perfect album for me, beginning to end. Love every last song on here. The Mouse Police Never Sleeps, Acres Wild, No Lullaby, Rover, One Brown Mouse, and of course the fantastic title track, Heavy Horses. Jethro Tull, Heavy Horses. This was released in 1978, I believe. Yeah, 1978. And also from Jethro Tull, another one that's hard to pick between these two albums. It's hard to choose my favorite, but I think Heavy Horses edges it out a little bit. And the other one is, of course, Thick as a Brick. And this was the limited edition box set that came out a few years ago, I think 2012 actually, wow. A few years ago. Featuring the original Thick as a Brick album, which I absolutely love. And then it also featured Thick as a Brick 2. We're packed in this, and it came with a beautiful hardcover book that featured in the hardcover book the original newspaper, because as you know, as people may or may not know, the original Thick as a Brick cover from the 70s folded out into a newspaper. And of course here it's been beautifully recreated in this beautiful, beautiful hardcover book. The entire newspaper is here. Then lots of information about making Thick as a Brick and making Thick as a Brick 2. And then the newspaper, which was actually a website paper for Thick as a Brick 2 is in here. Beautiful hardcover book. Limited edition, Thick as a Brick. And that's my favorite artist from the Jays. Moving on to the K's now. And my favorite artist from the K's, for sure, Kiss. Kiss are always fun. And this is probably my favorite Kiss album, Destroyer, with Detroit Rock City, Beth, Do You Love Me, among other things. Kiss, Destroyer, my favorite artist from the K's. Next up, the Elves. And some of you are probably going to go, Anthony, what are you talking about? And I'm going to get some thumbs down probably from this. But my favorite artist from the Elves is a lady that has released a fair body of work in the last 10 years. And I really like her. She's a pop artist. I really love her work. And what can I say? She is a household name nowadays. And this is one of her albums that I haven't shown before. I have shown most of her other albums in previous videos. This is Lady Gaga. This is the Art Pop album from 2013 or 14, was it? 2013 Art Pop. But Lady Gaga, absolutely an incredible talent. She has definitely risen up in the last 10 years to be a tour de force. And I will give an honorable mention to, and the reason I'm doing this as an honorable mention and you're like, Anthony, what are you thinking? And not putting them first is because they're just so played to death, and I'm just so tired of them because they're just, I was never a massive fan of theirs. I liked their music, but it just got overplayed till I kind of got sick and tired of it. But I will give an honorable mention to, as tied for favorites in the Elves, would of course be Led Zeppelin. And this is the In Through the Outdoor with the paper bag over it. In Through the Outdoor, their last studio album, which doesn't get a lot of love, and I really, really like this. Fool in the Rain, in the evening, I'm Gonna Crawl, All My Love. This is a great album, one of my favorites. The first Led Zeppelin and this one are my two favorite Led Zeppelin albums. So honorable mention to Led Zeppelin for me, though Lady Gaga, I really do appreciate her music. And Led Zeppelin, maybe on another day I might wake up and say put Led Zeppelin higher, but they're just so overplayed, and I'm just kind of tired of them because they're so talked about in the vinyl community and so played. But there you go, Led Zeppelin. And last but not least in today's video, the M's. And my favorite artist from the letter M has got to be Mr. Bob Marley and the Wailers. And I could have showed Exodus and a lot of other albums, but I decided to show this fantastic live album, Babylon by Bus. This was the great 2-record live album that came out, I believe, on the Exodus. It was recorded during the Exodus tour. So it has on here Positive Vibration, Punky Reggae Party, Stirred Up, Kinky Reggae, Rebel Music, Is This Love, Heathen, Jammin'. A fantastic album, like I said, recorded during the Exodus tour. Great live album. Bob Marley and the Wailers, my favorite artist from the M's for sure. And coming up in runner-up place, a UK band that also doesn't get a lot of love, that you never see anybody in the vinyl community showing. But I really like these guys, and they are still making music to this day, and I have a lot of albums by these guys. I probably have more albums by these guys than even Bob Marley. But I love these guys. They are great. They are The Mission, and this is one of their finest albums right here. Carved in Sand, with the incredible Into the Blue, Butterfly on the Wheel. If you haven't heard it, you need to. And Sea of Love and Deliverance. There were 4 big singles off this. This one was released late 1990. 1990, this album was originally released, but they've made over a half a dozen albums since this album. The Mission, Carved in Sand. And this one right here is their latest album from 2016. This is Another Fall from Grace, and this is a fantastic spin. The more I play this, the more I like it. I got this a few years ago when it came out. So the Mission are still going strong, and this is Another Fall from Grace, an absolutely fabulous spin. Hard to find this album on vinyl. You'd have to search around for it, but I highly recommend this album. And those are my favorite artists from A to M. Like I said, that's not written in stone. I did look through my collection, and I could have picked a lot of other people because I love so many artists. But, I had to narrow it down and stick to the ones that I had a lot of music, the ones that get spun a lot, artists that I'm always coming back to and spinning a lot. And so there they are. Next week, I'm going to do part 2, which will be N through Z, my favorite artists N through Z, and show, something from each of those artists. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. As I always like to, likes are always make people feel good and know that you're doing the right thing. Those of you that watch this video that don't subscribe to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Always welcome new subscriber, and don't be afraid to leave comments below. I love hearing feedback from everybody. The only way to make better videos and make a channel better is to hear the comment, and I love to hear everybody's opinions. I'll probably get some hate on some of my choices for favorite artists, but music is subjective. We all love what we love. We all have different tastes. I try to listen to all music from all generations: 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. So I like to absorb it all. This is just a tiny bit of my favorite artists, and I hope you watch next week's video. I try to do a video like this every Monday or Tuesday. This week's was late by 1 day because I had a very busy day yesterday. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you can be notified when I do release my next video or do a live stream. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at AGK_lifetime of vinyl, where I try to post a spin of the day every day. That's it. That's all. See you on the next video. And as I always say, rock and roll.